The important thing to consider, whether it's a natural stone or a manufactured stone, is the degree of abrasiveness of the grit. To illustrate, there's 3 grades of sandpaper. We can see this one is very coarse. It's P60. So the lower the number, the coarser the grit is. Our red one, P240. Quite a lot finer. And our white one, P400. Finer again. For sanding wood, this will give us a fine finish. For sharpening carving tools, this is not nearly fine enough. Let's consider these 2 identical gouges. The one on the right, we can see, has a very rough scratched finish, whereas the one on the left has a mirror polish. The rough scratch finish on the right won't be nearly sharp enough to carve wood, whereas the one on the left will give us a fine result. There's a wide range of tools and sharpening stones available, broadly in 2 categories, either a natural stone, as in it's quarried from the earth, or a composite stone, which could be made from an abrasive compound of different types. Traditionally, in the West, we've used oil to stop the sharpening stones getting clogged. In Japan, water. This is a industrial diamonds on a metal plate, and it has 4 different grades, ranging from 200 around to 600. All of these are good for rough shaping, but not good for giving us a fine finish. This is a composite stone. I've seen this in a lot of cheaper lino or wood carving sets, and it's way too rough to give us a fine polish. I would say it's around 200 or 300 grit. In fact, this is the stone I use to do this. So if you're trying to sharpen your tools with this stone, you won't get them much sharper than that. This is a natural stone called Belgian Brock. It's about 1,000 grit. Used with water, develops a nice fine slurry, cuts very well, very good stone. This is another piece of natural stone, about 8,000 grit. Both of our natural stones, it's not consistently the same grit throughout the stone. This is a Carborundum Stone, which has been used as an oil stone, double-sided with a finer, around 800, maybe 200, quite rough on this side. This is a moulded stone with grooves for sharpening gouges, profiles for cleaning the inside of gouge or V-chisel, and a flat side for sharpening flat chisels. This is around 1500, so it's quite a fine finish. With this particular manufacturer, there's 2 other grades. This one about 300, very good for doing our rough shaping. This one about 1,000, good for taking out the rough scratches, giving us a much sharper edge. And the 1500, which will give us a very fine finish. This is a different manufacturer, again a ceramic stone. This is about 4,000 grit. This is in 2 pieces instead of being in a single piece. Last, we have a jeweler's Rouge. This is a very fine polish, moulded in wax, used with the leather strop. Gives us a very fine polished finish. The polish on this tool is from this. Around about 50,000, so very, very fine. You don't need a big range of tools. If you just had one that's about 1,000 grit would be multi-purpose. Whether it's a flat chisel, a knife, or a gouge, or a V-chisel, the same principle applies. Your tool has one flat side and one bevel. In the case of a flat chisel, if we look at the side, we can see the flat side and the bevel. They come to a very sharp point. This angle for our handheld tools is about 20 degrees. Could be slightly more, could be slightly less, it doesn't matter. What's important to get our perfectly shaped tool, this side is perfectly flat, also this bevel is perfectly flat and comes to a very fine point here, which would be razor sharp. If we look at a gouge, it's actually the same, although it's curved in shape. It has one flat side and a bevel. The same principle applies. To get a very sharp tool, we need to have this perfectly flat, bevel perfectly flat, coming to a very fine point. If you sharpen a secondary bevel, can you see how it increases this angle dramatically? And although this point might be sharp, it becomes much harder to push through the wood and you don't get as good a result. Likewise, if you put a bevel on the back of the tool, this also increases the angle at the point, making the tool harder to work with. And again, although that point could be sharp, it's not very effective for cutting our wood. And even worse, if you have a rounded edge on this bevel, it increases the angle dramatically. So when you're sharpening your tools, always keep these principles in mind. This flat bevel, perfectly flat back, correct angle, no secondary bevels or odd shapes. All of our tools have an optimum shape as well as having a flat side, a flat bevel, and a correct degree. They also have an optimum shape. This is our knife tool. We can see the angle of the blade is about 60 degrees. This is actually a left-handed knife, and a right-handed knife is the same, it's just the bevel is the other way. A flat chisel, a kentonomi by contrast, should have 90-degree angle and a straight edge right across. Our gouges, as well as having the flat and the bevel maintained, it's important to pay attention to the profile at the end of the tool. Either of these shapes work quite well, this backward curve or batwing odd shape don't cut effectively. So as you're sharpening, you need to take care whether it's a large gouge, a medium size, or a very small gouge. All have the same principle. And Isaki, or clearing chisel, same as our flat chisels, has flat side and a flat bevel and different radius on the rounded front edge. and